how can we learn from the leaders, educators, and experts in our industry? What can we take away from their successes and failures? How can we apply this to our businesses, our careers, and our lives? This is what we are here to find out. I'm your host, Karthik Chidambaram, CEO of DCKAP. We make systems, talk to each other for manufacturers and distributors. I love to learn and share that knowledge with others. This podcast is about having meaningful conversations that we can all learn from. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy this conversation.
So what drives me is the heritage of 5 generations behind me and the legacy that so many people have built, but then my responsibility to continue to grow the business and build on that heritage and keep it going. A couple of challenges that are really critical to distribution overall. Number one is the pace of change and the pace of innovation. In plumbing and HVAC in particular, technology is shifting the business in a major way. We're seeing a generational transfer of our customers as well. We have many customers that their grandparents did business with my grandparents, but that doesn't necessarily make them want to do business with me.
Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Driven by DCKAP podcast. We are joined by a very special guest from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Kathryn Poehling Seymour, President and CEO of First Supply. Katie, great to be chatting with you, and thank you for joining the Driven show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So Katie, the theme of this podcast is driven, and you are a 5th generation business. How are you driven? What keeps you going?
Honestly, one of the things I'm really proud of is being a steward of this business in this moment in time. So what drives me is the heritage of 5 generations behind me and the legacy that so many people have built, not only my family, but the thousands of families that have been part of this business. That's hugely motivating. But then my responsibility to continue to grow the business and build on that heritage and keep it going. So it's not only the recognizing the heritage, it's about what we can continue to create and the world in front of us and all of the innovation, all of the opportunity, all of the customers out there to serve, all of the team members to join us, all of the potential in the future is hugely exciting to me.
What do you see as some of the challenges in distribution today, especially when it comes to plumbing, HVAC, and industrial supplies?
A couple of challenges that are really critical to distribution overall. Number one is the pace of change and the pace of innovation, right? It was Jack Welch who said that if the world outside you is moving faster than change is moving within your business, it couldn't be more true today. I'm sure it's going to be true forever as we continue to go forward, but it's critical to stay up to date about what's going on, not only in distribution, but in all industry around us. My husband teases me that I'm obsessed with the news, but I explained to him it's part of my job to know what's going on in the world, what external factors are going to influence not only my business decisions, but also my customers' business decisions, and then our communities and what's going to happen within our communities. So, but not becoming crazy about it, but making sure you're just informed and making sure all of that's going on. In plumbing and HVAC in particular, technology is shifting the business in a major way. We're seeing a generational transfer of our customers as well. Many of them are family businesses, multi-generational businesses. And as the next generation takes over their businesses, they've got different priorities. They want to do business differently. Their loyalties might be different. We have many customers that their grandparents did business with my grandparents, but that doesn't necessarily make them want to do business with me. We've got to continue a relationship, and I've got to continue to prove why our teams and our business is the best solution for their business. So reestablishing ourselves constantly, that reinvention that's so critical in any business, is one of the things that I think is going to be a big change, and making sure we're reinventing ourselves in ways that are true to our values and not just the flavor of the week.
Yeah, keep reinventing yourself. And you also talked about Jack Welch. I like him as well. I read his book Straight from the Gut, and that also helped me start DCKAP.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great strategist. I love him as a CEO as well. Again, there are people who like him and dislike him, but there are definitely things you can learn from Jack Welch.
Yeah, and one of the other great books I love is Lights Out, which is another story of GE, and talks about what actually led to challenges at at GE and kind of post Jack Welch, how things, they got too big, so big, and then how culture played a role into it. It was a fascinating book about kind of the other side of GE, but a great business story about challenges that arise in any business.
Lights out. I should check that out, especially after Jeff Emlett took over, and then, I think thanks for the recommendation. Yeah. So, Katie, I was reading about First Supply, very fascinating story. You're a leading plumbing, HVAC, industrial supplies distributor based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's a 128-year-old business, and you are the 5th or the 6th generation entrepreneur?
The 5th generation, yep, exactly. So our business was started back in 1897 by a handful of gentlemen who, it's an interesting story. They were customers themselves, and they went to their distributor partner for a new product, the newfangled metal windmills. They were well drillers and wanted these new windmills to put with their wells, and the distributor decided not to carry them. It was a brand new product that was uncertain. They said, okay, we'll do it ourselves, and the rest is history. We continue that same foundation and premise of being customer-led but employee-engaged. It's our teams that really decipher what our customer needs are in the marketplace, and that legacy has continued almost 128 years.
You worked for Deloitte as well before joining First Supply, but I'm very curious to know about your early years. What are your first memories of First Supply? When did you first go in?
Gosh, that's a great question. One of my first memories, quite honestly, we had been around the business forever, and we still sell kitchen cabinets. It's one of our great heritage things. In 1940, my grandfather Gerhard added kitchen cupboards to the plumbing showroom that he ran, making what we believe to be the very first ever kitchen and bath showroom. Before there were bath showrooms and kitchen, but never together. And so we had these amazing kitchens in our showroom, and it was like playing a life-size game of house. So me and my 2 sisters would be running around, and at the time in the 1980s, we had kind of fake food in them. So we were like playing house in a real live kitchen. It was so much fun. That's one of my first fond memories. My first work memory is we also are in the waterworks area, so we have large pipe yards, and when the pipe would come in bundles, they were wrapped with metal bands, and the team would cut them off and offload the pipe. So these metal bands would be all over the pipe yard, and I had to go pick them up, which is not a fun job. They're sharp, they're hard, and it's cold, and you're walking around with this big bag picking up metal pipes. So we all start somewhere.
So you always knew that you were going to get into the business. Was that the thought process growing up? And did you guys have dinner table conversations around business?
We definitely had dinner conversations around business. And I knew my dad had a really interesting job, and I knew that our whole family was involved. My grandpa worked there, and his my uncles, and it was a big part of the family. But I didn't necessarily always know I wanted to be in the business. I knew I wanted a job that was as interesting as my dad's, and I got to do the interesting stuff that he did. I didn't know that it would be his job that I eventually took. He instituted a role in our family governance that we have to work outside the business for 5 years, which is what took me to Deloitte. After my undergraduate, I went to law school and then came and worked at Deloitte. And honestly, I wasn't looking for a job when he came and asked me if I'd consider joining the business. I loved what I was doing at Deloitte. I was doing interesting things, and I'm working my way through the organization. But when he laid out his vision for the future and for the business and what my career might look like, it was very compelling, and I jumped at the opportunity.
I like the family governance part you talked about. Can you elaborate a little more on that? Because I think that's something a lot of distributors watching this would need, and some of them don't have that. Can you talk a little more about the family governance and how does that work, and when was this constituted, and how do you guys go about doing that?
So succession planning also has been a huge core competency in the business for a very long time. It was important to my grandfather. It is important to my father, and it's important not only in my leadership role, but all the way through our entire organization. All 701 people have a succession plan about where they want to go in the business, and then when they move up or on or over, what happens in their role. So we have a full plan, and we talk about it every year about what everyone's going to do. Part of that succession planning for our family is the family governance, So we've worked with Northwestern and the John Ward Institute to ensure that our entire family, 4 generations now of people active in the family governance, from my father's generation to mine, to my children, and now my cousin's children are having children. It's the seventh generation, honestly, is being born. So all of those people need to be informed about not only our business and our business practices, because not everyone's connected. It's just myself and my cousin-in-law, our CFO, are the only two family members engaged in the business, along with my father, of course, who's our chairman emeritus. But the other family members aren't directly involved in the day-to-day business. So they have to have a level of understanding about what we do, who we are, who our teams are, who our customers are, but then also about best practices in family business governance. So we're creating a common language that allows us to really be the proper stewards for not only each other and this asset our family has, but also the 701 families that rely on First Supply as an ongoing entity. And we really take that very seriously, our responsibility to that.
This is very cool. You hire experts and you hired Northwestern to help you with that whole process, and then you structured that, and you iterate along the way. It's very, very
Exactly.
cool. So you're a fifth generation business, and you guys have built a great company, First Supply, leading distributor. But what is your vision?
One of the first things I did when I took over from my father and kind of gathered our leadership team was we recast our vision and mission statement. We had a vision and mission statement that served us very well through a very fast pace of growth that my father built, the scale of the business. But we needed to know what was next for us. How are we going to take this scale and continue? Because in distribution, if you're not growing, you're dying. So you better keep going. So our vision is to distribute innovation and partnership in our communities for generations. And all of those are not just words we put together. It's really important to us that all of these things mean something. Distribution's what we do, innovation's what we strive for. In our communities, we live and work and play in our communities, and it's critical to all of us that we play a key role, not only philanthropically, but also just the engagement in our communities. And we intend to do it for generations to come. So it really laid out what our intentions are, and it hopefully the goal was that it's something that every single person in the organization can know and remember, and the meaning carries forward for them too. Whether you drive a truck or whether you're an executive on the team, all of those things carry meaning, and they relate directly to your role and how you will live and execute really the vision of the business.
Yeah, you need to feel important, and whatever be the job, whatever you're doing, that's very, very critical for the business, and you communicate that really well. But I'm just curious, right? So, you talked about emergency preparedness, and even the way you became CEO was very interesting when I was reading about it. Hey, all of a sudden, you had a succession plan in place, but things didn't go well, and then, you had a family emergency, and then you just have to step in. Can you talk us through that? What really happened, and how did you just get into the role of the CEO?
Sure. Honestly, that succession plan can be the greatest gift in any organization. And part of it wasn't just a succession plan that was the best kept secret in the company. Everybody knew. The board knew the succession plan, the family knew the succession plan, the team knew the succession plan. So my father had a stroke, and we called an emergency board meeting. It was about a 15-minute meeting because everybody knew the plan. All we did was execute the plan. And that was really an incredible thing. We didn't have to worry about who was going to do what when. We knew what the plan was, and we could just simply get on with the task of running the business and then also taking care of each other in this state of crisis and emergency. So we had time and space to do that, but also to keep the business going and running. That was really key to not only our teams, but our customers and our vendors too. I sat around my parents' kitchen table and I made a whole bunch of phone calls and explained to everyone, this is the plan. One of the coolest things about doing that, it's not a fun thing to do necessarily, but when I called our customers, when I called our vendors, and I explained, hey, I'm taking over, this is the plan, most of them said, I know. They just assumed that was the plan. They kind of saw what was going and what was happening, which made it a really easy conversation. But rewind way before that, Joe had taken a lot of steps to make sure we were prepared for this role. Some of that was the family governance piece, our corporate governance, making sure we were engaged with the board before we even joined the board of directors, and then making sure that we understood who our customers and vendors were in each of our key divisions. So Todd and I spent time going to meeting the customers, meeting the vendors, going to that industries association events, and really deep dive into that part of the business so that when we came into a leadership role, we knew the differentiations between all those aspects of the business.
And how long were you in the business prior to being the CEO?
Just about 10 years.
Oh, 10 years. So you had already a CEO in the making.
Yeah, a little bit. And honestly, my favorite joke, is just a terrible one, is I talk about it, people say, how long have you been in the business? And I say, a little over 12 or a little over 40, depending on how you're counting, because I've been in training for my whole life in many ways.
And you talked about the board, and a lot of large distributors have a board, but up-and-coming ones don't really have one. When is a good time, do you think, on your perspective, to constitute a board, and who should be on the board? How do you guys decide, right? So who's on your board, and how does that work?
A good time is yesterday. Just having, for many companies, it's a bit of an evolution in terms of having maybe a trusted board of advisors. Maybe it's not a fiduciary board to start with, especially in family businesses, making the transition as fewer family members are involved in the day-to-day operations of the business, making sure that there's great external support and that it's a very legitimized board of governance so that those family members, when they look into how the business is being run, they know that a group of experts is advising their family members who are tasked with running the day-to-day operations. That's really key to us. So our independent board actually started in the 1990s by my uncle Ed Felton, who was running the business at the time. Very forward-thinking guy. And you think about innovation, he actually bought our first computer. So technology was key to him, but to him, innovation happened in people and process. He was all about training, and he was all about making people feel connected to the process. So for him, that independent board of directors was key. It was an accounting, a finance person, a legal person, and then just a really great business person that he knew in the community. So we started with 3 independent directors. And then we've instituted a refreshment policy. So we've used consultants to help us go out and find the best people who are thinking about things that we're doing. And then we've also used our other board members' networks to say, hey, who do you think would be good on our board? Maybe it's someone that you're not super close to, but someone that you think, hey, their insights would help our company. So we've added 2 actually sitting CEOs of local businesses, both family businesses, one in distribution, one in manufacturing, to the board. And then we have someone who was in retired chief technology officer of a manufacturing company, and then another gentleman who does a ton of M&A, and that's a really core competency that he brings to our board, along with a strong finance background.
This is something I relate to a lot from what you said. Anytime you need help, you just don't look within, you look outside, and you bring in external help. And I think that's a great strategy, right? Because when you bring in external consultants, they tell you things which you don't know and which you not even think about. So I really love that. And you talked about technology investments, right? How are you guys investing in technology, and how is that helping for supply?
So one of the largest project we've ever done, we're undergoing right now. We're about 2/3 of the way, I'd call it, into this project. We're building a brand new distribution center. And great, we could build a big building and fill it full of product, but what's really key is the processes and the technology and innovation that this building will bring to us, and this project brings to us. So it involves a brand new warehouse management system, a WMS. It involves a new TMS, transportation management system. It has robotics and automation, automated picking equipment, things like that. So a lot of really fascinating things that will help move us forward, improve our productivity, improve our efficiency, but also improve the safety for our teams and their ability to operate safely in the building. We just heard from the last speaker, Oscar Munoz, about automation. And in the airlines, he's the CEO of United Airlines, and automation eliminating jobs. And I get that same question. Katie, you're going to automate this building. What about the people? So we have 11 people that work in our distribution center today. And we're really proud that all 11 are moving over with us to the new building. But then we'll actually need to hire 40 more to get started, and then 20 more and 20 more. We believe about 80 people will ultimately be needed to run this building. So 8 times the number of people that we need today. It's very much about a job creation scenario, and this is very much a growth lever for us, not a cost-cutting exercise.
No, totally right. I relate to that. Technology does help with job creation, and you don't do the same good thing for too long, even if you're very good at it. Okay, this job is not there anymore, but I can do something better, and that also helps me improve as a person.
Absolutely.
Totally relate to that. And another thing which I found very interesting is something you said, right? Let's say, what if your largest customer becomes the smallest? And what if, the largest vendor becomes the smallest, in terms of strategy? I think that's a great thought process. So is that how you think, or, you guys talk about this all the time, or how does that go? How does that happen?
I'm kind of laughing because one of my favorite meetings last year, so we rolled out our new vision and mission statement, and then we said we need to identify strategies around how we're going to fulfill this vision and mission statement. And we had identified, the leadership team had identified 3 things, and we took it to our senior team to say, how are we going to fulfill these strategies? And the 3 strategies were innovate our revenues, innovate our workforce, and innovate our processes. So we said, okay, we've got big buckets of things that innovation was at the core of all of them. We needed to think differently. And the exercise we went through, we broke up into groups in a big conference room, and we said, what if our largest customer becomes our smallest? What if our largest vendor becomes our smallest? What does that mean? And everybody had to think. It was so cool, the conversation that flowed from that, because everyone took it to a really positive place. Nobody thought, oh, it's because we're failing, that now our largest vendors are smallest because we no longer buy that. It's because maybe another vendor became our largest because we grew into another segment, or we acquired a company that in a different division, and all of a sudden that became even bigger than our core business. So it was a really neat exercise that took us all out of our day-to-day, but allowed us then to populate these strategies with ideas that we probably wouldn't have thought of if we hadn't done that thought exercise first.
Yeah, I also think the best time to do these exercises is when things are going well, right? And if it's in a crisis, it's hard. Right? You just have to get down and dirty and just work on the crisis. I'm just curious, right? So what does a typical day look like for you? I mean, what time do you start and what time do you end? What do you do during the day?
What I love most about this job is there's no typical day. Every day is different. And to me, that's what's exciting about it. It's funny, my husband's a college professor, so for him, his day is very prescripted, and that's what he loves about it. So neither of us would ever be able to do each other's, but it makes it fun. I have 3 little kids that I mentioned to you earlier. I have a 5-year-old and an almost 4-year-old twin, so my mornings and evenings revolve heavily around them when I'm home. I wake up when they wake me up. I no longer need an alarm clock. No, it is about, and it's something I've learned over time too, as I've only been growing into motherhood now for about 5 years. So I had to learn how to carve out times in my day to keep that time. They're only little for so long, and I approach my day very differently than I did 6 or 7 years ago, when I was much more selfish about my time, and I could really dictate my time in a much different way. So I've got a team of helpers. My assistant does a great job of keeping my mornings pretty sacred. I try not to start meetings until a little bit later so I can make sure that I get them all off to school. And I try to make sure that I'm there in the evening as much as I can. I've shifted my travel schedule a little bit so that I'm home. I try to be home either morning or evening, and not be gone more than 2 nights in a row. So I kind of put these self-prescribed rules in place to try to give me that time and space, because everyone needs to multitask to a certain degree. But I find if I can kind of pick up and put down, it works a lot better. The other thing that's really important to me that I talk about a lot, I get asked about work-life balance a lot. Many people knowing I have little kids, there's no balance, it's all blend to me. I use that phrase a lot because this weekend's a great example. It's my twin's birthday, and I have a board meeting in California. I'm bringing them with. So we're going to go a couple days early. We're going to have a great time. They can be with a babysitter, and my mom's actually coming with. I shouldn't call her the babysitter. They can be with my mom at the pool and enjoy while I do my work. But it gives me the opportunity then to have dinner with them, or on a break say hello. And usually at this particular meeting they serve ice cream, so I always bring them an ice cream in the afternoon. They love that. They think mom's work is so fun. But also making sure that I carve out time for things I like to do. I love to play tennis. I don't get much time to do it, but I do it typically at my kind of neighborhood tennis club, where I can see my friends, I can see my neighbors, have a glass of wine, and I don't get to do it enough, but it's something I really enjoy and gives me a little bit of a break and connect back to my community too.
I love playing tennis as well. And I really like how you're spending your day, right? I mean, it's not, like you said, right? It's not the work-life balance, it's all integrated, or I call it the life-work balance. You kind of revolve everything And it's really nice, right? Even as a leader, as a CEO, it's not just business. You have to take care of your kids, you have to take care of your home, and then you blend that to work. I think that's a great story. And what has parenting taught you, right? I mean, how does that help business? What are the things you learn from your kids which you apply at work?
Honestly, I think a lot of it is about doing the things that are most important, and there's no time for the rest. Right? You have to be diligent and efficient. And some of that I've learned, we have a lot of opportunities to make a positive impact in our communities as well. That's critically important to me. It's been important in all 5 generations of our business as well. It's why it's part of our vision statement, because it's something I know my great-grandfather did, and we need to carry that legacy. So I found ways to also integrate them in our philanthropic efforts so that our impact to the community is even greater. It's not just something that's important to me, something that's important to our whole family, and then something that our business can also take on as well. Right now we're kicking off a diaper drive. So when I became a mom and people said, oh, aren't you worried, aren't you nervous? The thing that made me nervous is if I didn't know where their next diaper was coming from or their next meal, or I wasn't able to take care of them in the way I wanted to. I'm very fortunate to have the resources to do that. How could I help others who don't or who have less also be able to do that? And it's something our business has rallied around. My girls come with me to do the diaper drive drop off every year. They think it's a ton of fun. We fill the bathtubs in our showrooms with diapers and they think it's hilarious. But it's a cool way to blend everything together. That's taught me about that efficiency. I can do something that is great philanthropically for the business, or I can do something that covers all those bases. And it's made me really think critically about how the efficiencies in our business.
And I would like to end with this question. What is something that you're reading right now, or something you've recently learned which you've applied into your business and that's helped your growth?
My favorite thing to read, I just talked about efficiencies. I love reading Harvard Business Review because it's quick hits of the things that are the most critical, that are the most important topics of the moment. And I can flip through it. I'm always usually carrying one around with me in my bag because I don't get to it, and then I can sit down and read it. But it gives me, it's thought-provoking. It gives me a lot to think about. But it really makes sure that I'm up to date on the most current issues, and there's almost always something in there that I'm sending to my team. Almost every time, whether it's to my VP of IT or my VP of HR, hey, check this out. How can we use this? So it's helping me bring tools back into the business too. But again, quick hits of things that are forward-thinking research that I can digest.
I was chatting with the CEO of IPS Packaging, Derek Murdoch, and this is something he said as well, right? So he reads something, and let's say he finds something really, really cool, he definitely passes it on to the team. I think that's great leadership as well, right? So you read it and then just send it to the team, and then they read it and everybody's on the same page and all of us are aligned, and we grow together. Yeah.
Yep.
So Katie, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. Great seeing you in person, and thank you for your time. Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for joining our Driven by DCKAP podcast. Your support means a lot to us. If you enjoyed this episode, please click the like button and subscribe. Consider leaving us a review. Thank you for joining us.